Welcome to the PJ Hoop Podcast. I'm your host, PJ, and this is your very first time checking out my podcast. First and foremost, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to check out my podcast. I also want to let you guys know this is a basketball podcast. So on my podcast, yes, predominantly I'm covering the NBA, but I also like to cover high school, college, and international basketball in a segment I like to call In the Lab that I talk about towards the end of the episode. So just keep that in mind as you watch my podcast, knowing that it's not just an NBA podcast. Also, I want to give you guys the 4 segments that I go over week in to week out. The first being a segment I like to call PJ's Echelon. And in PJ's Echelon, it's me giving you guys my power rankings, my top 10 teams. And then usually I'm giving you about 2 to 3 teams that I believe that are on the bubble. I'll give you the full criteria for that very shortly. Another segment is a segment I like to call What's New. Now, in What's New, I'm giving you guys some type of NBA history that may have happened. It might be me ranting or some type of NBA news that took place over this last week. Thirdly, another segment that I like to go over is a segment I like to call Games of the Week. Now, in Games of the Week, I'm talking about games that I'm looking forward to in the upcoming week, or I'm talking about games that I really enjoyed this last week, or I'm talking about games of some type of significance. Obviously, the All-Star break just ended, so there's going to be a lot of high marquee games for the second half of the year. The last segment that I like to go over is a segment I like to call In the Lab. Now, In the Lab, I'm talking about NBA rookies. I'm talking about international basketball. I'm talking about high school basketball, and I'm also talking about college basketball. Now, before I get started on today's episode, I just want to let you guys know that in honor of March Madness, because we're right around the corner, we're not that far away, I will be doing a literal March Madness special episode where I'll give you guys my bracket, who I think is going to win the national title in each round, but I'm also going to give you guys about 10 to 15 players that are prospects that I'll be watching for throughout the tournament as well. So you're not going to want to miss that episode. I'll probably drop that episode as we get closer. Once after the conference tournament week is done in college basketball, once the bracket's set, I will be doing an episode like that. So I just want to let you guys know to look out for that. Otherwise, this episode's being recorded Monday, February 24th, 2025 at about 11 a.m. So keep that in mind as I go through each segment, okay? So my first segment on the chopping block is a segment I like to call PJ's Echelon. Now in PJ's Echelon, it's me giving you guys my power rankings. Understand that this is a progressive list because I'm a progressive man. I'm not a perfect man. I also want to give you guys the criteria that I like to use week in to week out when I'm doing my power rankings. So first piece is the eye test. I also like to look at strength of schedule, statistically where your team sits, but then also the team's record. Now, mind you guys, remember this is being recorded Monday, February 24th at about 11 a.m. So keep that in mind as we go through the list. So let's start it off. First team on my chopping block. This team is 46-10, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma right now, they're 5th in offensive efficiency. They're 1st in defensive efficiency, and they're 1st in net rating. They're 25-1 against teams below 500. They're 37-2 in games decided by 10 points or more. They're 19-1 against the Eastern Conference, with their only loss coming to the Bucks during the Cup final, which I think is kind of dumb, but anyways, they're darn near undefeated against the East. They're dominating the East. They are 0-3 in overtime games, so I do want to take note of that. And they have the third, since January 1st, they are third. They're 3rd in offensive efficiency, and they're still 1st in defensive efficiency. This team is just humming on all cylinders. Number 2, this team is 41-16, and that is the Boston Celtics. Boston right now, they're 3rd in offensive efficiency, they're 5th in defensive efficiency, and they're 3rd in net rating. They're 6-3 in games decided by 3 points or less. They're 20-10 against teams above 500. They're 9-1 in their last 10. Here comes the C's. They have one of the easiest remaining schedules as well. Number 3. This team is 47-10, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland right now, they're 1st in offensive efficiency. They're 7th in defensive efficiency, and they're 2nd in net rating. They have the best record against teams above 500 at 22-6. They're on a 7-game win streak, which is the longest in the NBA. And since January 1st, they've kind of cooled down a little bit. Right now, they're 4th in field goal percentage at 49%. They're 8th in three-point percentage at 37%. But they're still 1st in points per game at 124 per game. Number 4, this team is 37-20, and that is the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis right now, they're 6th in offensive efficiency, they're 8th in defensive efficiency, and they're 4th in net rating. So I've moved Memphis up from 5 to 4 because I really just felt that I need to bring New York down, which I'll talk more about once I get to New York's spot. But I also felt like putting them at 4 because their week wasn't too bad. Yes, they lost to the Pacers, but the Pacers have been blazing hot. right out the break. And then they beat the Magic, which I thought was a solid win. And then I felt like they played Cleveland a lot tougher than New York did as well anyways. So I feel good putting them at 4 for this week. And then also, I'll talk more about the Lakers here shortly on why I didn't put the Lakers at 4. But right now, they have the second best home record in the West at 21-6. They're second in points per game at 123 points per game. They're sixth in field goal percentage at 48%. And against teams above 500, they're 13-17. So that's just something I wanted to throw out to you guys to know and just take notice of. So they're at number 4. Number 5, this team is 34-21, and that is the Los Angeles Lakers. LA right now, they're 10th in offensive efficiency, they're 13th in defensive efficiency, and they're 12th in net rating. They're 15-12 against teams above 500. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. And of course, they had a great game against Denver. And they got over that bug because Denver obviously has been a thorn in their side for years. And I just felt like I've always felt that Luka kind of neutralizes whatever Nikola Jokic does. Luka's going to give you, let's say, 35, 11, and 9, whereas Jokic is going to give you that 30, 15, and 10, so they kind of neutralize each other. So Lakers finally got their neutralizer to Nikola Jokic. But I also didn't feel comfortable putting them up to 4 quite yet because I want to see more. This last game was the first real game where we actually seen Luka feel comfortable, So I'm interested to see how they perform this week. And then after this week, if they do well, then I probably will move them up to 4th. But this week, they got a pretty solid schedule. They get the Mavs coming up, I think, on Wednesday or Tuesday. They play the Mavs in LA, which obviously we're all going to be watching that. But then also they play the Timberwolves this week, and then they got the Clippers twice at the back end of the week. So I want to see how they kind of handle this week, okay? Number 6, this team is 37-20. And that is the Denver Nuggets. Denver right now, they're second in offensive efficiency. They're 17th in defensive efficiency. And they're 5th in net rating. They're 9-1 in their last 10. They're 8-4. They're 8-4 in games decided by 3 points or less. They're 4-0 in overtime games. Since January 1st, they're tied for the most wins at 19 with the Thunder. They're 3rd in net rating also since January 1st. I'm keeping them at 6 because, again, they got blitzed by the Lakers. But I also want to see how they respond this week because this week they got a pretty brutal schedule. They play the Pacers, the Bucks, the Pistons, and the Celtics. So I wanted to keep them at 6 this week. Number 7, this team is 37-20, and that is the New York Knicks. New York, they're 4th in offensive efficiency, they're 20th in defensive efficiency, and they're 6th in net rating. They're 5-1 in games decided by 3 points or less. They're 6-0 in overtime games. They're 0-7 against the top teams in the league in Boston, OKC, and Cleveland. But for me, it wasn't that they lost, it's the way they lost these last couple games against Boston and then Cleveland. It wasn't a good showing for them. So I felt like I needed to bring them down. But the thing that really made me want to bring them down, what really prompted me to bring them down, is I watched that Chicago game, and that Chicago game shouldn't have went to overtime. They should have manhandled Chicago. So that's another reason why I brought them down. But they're going to have a chance to move up again this week. The month of March should be a fairly, I ain't gonna say easy one for them by any means necessary, but they don't play any of those top 3 teams in the month. They don't play any of those top 3 teams in the month of March. So they should rack up a lot of wins because if you take out those games they've lost to those top 3 teams, they're 37-13. So this is a really good team. Let's not get it twisted. Number 8, this team is 35-22, and that is the Houston Rockets. Houston right now, they're 13th in offensive efficiency, they're 4th in defensive efficiency, and they're 7th in net rating. They beat the Timberwolves, but then they lost to the Jazz. So for me, those games kind of crossed each other out. They got a pretty nice homestand this week. They get to play the Bucks, the Spurs, and the Kings. So I'm hoping that they at least go 2-1 in that stretch. But I'll be paying attention to see how they rebound because their last 10 games, they're 3-7 in the last 10. But on the positive note, they are 20-15 against teams above 500. Number 9. This team is 32-23, and that is the Indiana Pacers. Indiana right now, they're 9th in offensive efficiency. They're 19th in defensive efficiency, and they're 15th in net rating. So they came out of the break just frying, okay? They blew out Memphis. They blew out the Clippers. Watch out. They're 4th in the East right now. And they got somewhat of a soft schedule remaining as well. I forgot. I talked about it last week, but I think they have like a top 10 easiest schedule remaining. But since the start of the new year, they're 6th in net rating. So watch out for the Pacers, man. Number 10, This team is 32-24, and that is the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee right now, they're 14th in offensive efficiency, they're 10th in defensive efficiency, and they're 11th in net rating. They're on a 4-game winning streak right now, beating the teams that they're supposed to. Since January 1st, they have the third best three-point percentage at 38%. They're averaging the sixth fewest turnovers also during that stretch at 13. So I got Milwaukee at number 10. Now my teams on the bubble in no particular order. I have the Detroit Pistons, the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Milwaukee Bucks. You guys let me know down in the comment section below who's in your top 10 and who do you have on your bubble. My next segment is a segment I like to call What's New. Now, What's New, I'm giving you guys some type of NBA history that may have happened this last week, statistically something that may have happened this last week, or it could just be me ranting. All right, so this segment today is going to be a little shorter than normal. So let's start it off. Shea becomes now Shea has the 10th most games in NBA history where he scores 35 plus points, have 3+ steals, and having 3+ blocks. So shout out to Shea on that. Andre Iguodala had his jersey retired over the weekend in Golden State. So shout out to Iggy. Congratulations to him on that. Malik Beasley is top 2 in the NBA in points off the bench, but also in threes off the bench as well. He's been playing very well for Detroit. I'm getting ready to talk pretty soon here about Detroit to you guys. The only players in NBA history to record 35+ points, 10+ assists, 3+ blocks, and 7+ made threes in a game is Vince Carter, Luka, Dame, and now Cade Cunningham. So shout out to Cade on that achievement. Keontae George becomes the youngest player in NBA history to come off the bench and to record 30+ points, have 5+ assists, having 5+ 3-pointers made. He's been playing very well. He had a really good game against OKC as well a couple nights before. My boy Keontae George. I'm a big Keontae George fan. So I'm going to give a shout out to him for what he just did. Another thing. Alex Sarr becomes the second fastest center to record 500 career points as a teenager, only trailing Wemby. Wemby did it a little bit faster. But Alex Sarr is having a very solid season for the Wizards quietly. He's not being super efficient, but he's affecting the game if you're watching the games. So shout out to Alex Sarr. So that is all I got for What's New this week. Again, I told you guys it was going to be a little shorter just because I want to save time for some of my other segments I'm ready to talk about. But you guys let me know down in the comment section below what's new. What things did you guys come across this last week? My next segment is a segment I like to call Games of the Week. Now, in Games of the Week, I'm giving you guys games that I really enjoyed watching, or I'm giving you guys games of some type of significance, or I'm giving you guys games that I'm looking forward to this week. So the game I decided to do this week that I really enjoyed watching was the Detroit Pistons versus the Atlanta Hawks. This took place, I believe it was last night. I think it was yesterday it took place, if I remember correctly. I think it was yesterday. But Detroit won the game 148-143. The highlights that I'm playing up in the corner for you guys are actually just highlights of Cade Cunningham and Trae Young, because I just felt like what they were doing throughout the game was I just felt like that's what I wanted to show you guys. I felt like it was just a really good showing, a display of a pure offense and pure skill by both players. So that's what I'm showing you guys. But also, I want to talk a little bit more about the game just slightly. So during this game, it was just pure offense, man. Detroit as a team shot 59% from the field and 50% from three. Atlanta shot 50% from the field and 47% from three. Pure offense all night long. And also something that I thought was really amazing is that the Detroit trio of Cade, Malik Beasley, and Tim Hardaway became the first Detroit trio to each make 5+ threes in a game while also all shooting over 50%. They were shooting lights. I mean, like I said, it was lights out performance by all three of those players, man. They were shooting the lights out. Something also that was really interesting, Detroit did not have a single quarter where they scored under 33 points. It was just an offensive display. It was an offensive display. And I really wish they still had Jaden Ivey, because I just wonder where else would this team be with Jaden Ivey. It's something that I'd be thinking about quite often. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys. But also, something to take note of is that if Detroit obviously looks like they're going to make the playoffs. If their pick is outside of the top 13, the pick actually goes to the Timberwolves. So that's something just I wanted to throw out to you guys to kind of just throw on you guys' plate. But overall, Cade's three-point Three-point percentage has come up slightly this year. He's up to 35% on the year now. For his career, he's only at 34%. But I still think he still has another leg to go on his three-point percentage because for his career, he's shooting 85% from the free throw line. And even if you watch Cade shoot the ball, he's not like his jumper's not broken. So I think 35% honestly is not good in my opinion. That's just not good. That's not even league average. League average I think is about 37% if I remember correctly, or 36 to 37% I believe is league average. So he's still under league average. He's still got another little leg to go on his three-point percentage, but it has gradually came up this year. So I just want to give a big shout out to Cade too. You know, Cade's had a wonderful season. I think we all kind of envisioned him taking a leap this year. I don't know anybody that necessarily had Detroit top 6 in the East. I was telling you guys during the summer that I could for sure see them in the play-in. And I was debating between them and the Hornets, who I felt like was going to be in the play-in. I ended up doing the Hornets because I thought LaMelo wearing the ankle bracelets was going to help. And I thought Brandon Miller was going to take a year or two leap. And I thought Mark Williams was going to be healthy. I was wrong. It ended up being Detroit that obviously took the leap, which I'm fine with. Because, again, I told you guys I could for sure see them doing it. I just didn't take them. But I don't know anybody that had them in the top 6. So I just want to give praise to Detroit, man, and that coaching staff. Shout out to JB Bickerstaff. I want to give a big shout out to them, man. And also shout out to the front office. I believe the person that got in the front office, his name is, I think it's Langston. Don't quote me on that, but it's the guy from the Pelicans. I forgot his name, but shout out to him too for building this team out, man. So I wanted to give love to them. Now, I want to talk to you guys about games that I'm looking forward to this week. So there's quite a bit. We're going to just start it off and get straight into it. So today, we got the Clippers versus the Pistons today. This game I'll be watching. Nuggets and the Pacers today. We got the Timberwolves and Thunder today. Tomorrow, we got the Cavs and the Magic. We got the Bucks and the Rockets also tomorrow. Also tomorrow, we got the Lakers hosting the Mavs. Wednesday, we got the Celtics versus the Pistons. Thursday, we got the Nuggets versus the Bucks. We got the Timberwolves versus the Lakers. That's also on Thursday. Friday, we got the Nuggets versus the Pistons. Friday, we also got the Cavs versus the Celtics. Friday, we also got the Knicks versus the Grizzlies. Friday, we also got the Battle of LA, the Lakers versus the Clippers. And then Saturday, we got the Rockets versus the Kings. And Sunday, we got the Nuggets versus the Celtics. And also Sunday, we get the Battle of LA once more. Woo, that was a lot. Now, you guys let me know down in the comment section below, what games did you guys really enjoy this week? What games are you guys looking forward to? What games did you guys really enjoy last week, and what games are you looking forward to this week? Again, I watch a lot of basketball, but I'm trying to keep these episodes between 25 to 35 minutes, so keep that in mind, all right? My next segment on the chopping block is a segment I like to call In the Lab. Now, in the Lab, it's what it sounds like. No, I'm joking. In the Lab is where I'm talking about today's NBA's rookies. I'm talking about international basketball. I'm talking about high school basketball, and I'm talking about college basketball. Today, we're going to check in on 5 of my 30 preseason prospects that I was going to be keeping my eyes out for during the college basketball season. If you're interested in that, I did that in episode 15. It was literally just straight college where I gave you guys 30 prospects that I was going to be looking forward to watching this year. Doesn't mean these were the 30 best prospects, but these were just 30 people that I was going to be keeping my eyes out on. We're going to check in on 5 of them today. So the kid that I'm looking forward to the most talking about, we're just going to talk about him first. I can't pronounce his last name, but his first name is Jaden. His last name starts with a Q. He's a freshman at Arizona State. Check this out. So he's only 17. He doesn't turn 18 until July. So he has to come back to Arizona State next year. But this kid is a monster. He stands at 6'9". He's about 225. He's a defensive monster, okay? So far, during his freshman year at Arizona State, he plays about 29 minutes. He averages 9 points, 8 rebounds, 1.5 assists. He averages 1 steal, 2.5 blocks, and he leads the Big 12 in blocks at 17. He averages 2.5 fouls per game. He shoots 52% from the field. He only shoots 48% from the free throw line on 3 attempts. But he's a monster, man. This kid, I think, for sure is going to be a lottery pick in 2026 draft. I'm really excited to see what he adds to his game going into next year, because the Arizona State team should be better next year. But yeah, he's a monster, man. So wanted to check in on him. Another player, his name is Xavier Booker. He's 6'11". He's a power forward / center for Michigan State. He's a sophomore this year. Thus far this year has kind of been a little disappointing for him. I thought he was gonna, get a larger role his sophomore year. Just has not happened. But so far this year, he's playing about 15 minutes a game. He averages 6 points, 2.5 rebounds, 1 block. He shoots 43% from the field, 23% from 3 on 2.5 attempts. He shoots 81.5% from the free throw line on 1 attempt. Xavier Booker, like I said, I feel like it's kind of, like I said, he's not really performing like I was looking forward to see if he was going to take a leap this next year because he was a highly rated kid coming out of high school 2 years ago. But his teammate, Jas Richardson, is hooping. I actually talked about Jas way back earlier in the season with you guys, but he's been balling. That's a name, if you don't know much about Jas Richardson, that's a kid who you guys should be watching closely as we go into the conference tournament, but then also in March Madness. That's going to be a name I think people are really going to come to love. That's actually the son of Jason Richardson as well. Another player that I want to check in on is Mackenzie Mabako. He's a sophomore at Indiana. He's 6'8". Mackenzie Mabako right now, he's averaging 25 minutes a game. He's averaging 13 points, 4.5 rebounds. He's shooting 44% from the field. He's shooting 31% from 3 on 5 attempts. He's shooting 87% from the free throw line on 2 attempts. And he's, again, another player that I thought, I ain't gonna say another player. He's a player I actually thought was going to take a leap and actually cement himself as a potential late first rounder in the draft. But it just hasn't happened. He was highly rated too out of high school. He was actually supposed to go to Duke, but he ended up going to Indiana. So yeah, that's Mackenzie Mabako. Another player is Elliot Cadeau. Elliot Cadeau is a 6'1" point guard sophomore at North Carolina. Cadeau so far is averaging 28 minutes a game. He's averaging 10 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, 1 steal, 3 turnovers, shooting 45% from the field, 31% from 3 on 2 attempts. He's shooting 68% from the free throw line on 3 attempts. And Cadeau just has not really materialized. He was actually, I believe, the number 1 rated point guard coming out of high school. And last year, he showed like flashes, but the jump shot just was not there. It's still the same this year. He just really hasn't really stepped up the way I thought he was going to. Next player. This player's name is Christian Anderson, and he's a 6'2" point guard freshman at Texas Tech. Now, Anderson, I learned about him over the summer when he played for the German FIBA U18 team. He actually led them to win the tournament. They ended up winning that tournament over the summer, and he was named MVP. So that's when I learned about him, and I learned that he was actually going to be coming back to the States to go to Texas Tech. But so far on the season, he's playing about 29 minutes a game. He's averaging 10 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 turnover, shooting 45% from the field. He's shooting 41% from 3 on 5 attempts. He's shooting 77% from the free throw line. Like I just said, Anderson played for Germany over the summer. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing other college kids do that over the summer, try and get to some of these international tournaments just to get their feet wet. But yeah. So those are the 5 kids that we're checking on this week. Next week, we'll check on another 5 players. I haven't decided yet what 5 players we're going to check on quite yet. But we're going to just keep chucking on this list until we can get to all 30. But yeah, thank you for checking out my podcast. I'm your host, PJ, and PJ's out.